Trousdale hit Ben over the head several times, and that was the end of the long Texan.
Okay, here's a sign, historical marker number 16553. Pulled in here to this little cutoff here, and here's the historical marker, but oops, one side of it appears to be gone. Let's go around the other side and see what we got. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is the historical marker that tells about the Baxter's Curve train robbery done by former Wild Bunch member Ben Kilpatrick.
So we're talking today about Ben Kilpatrick, one of the outlaws that rode with Butch Cassidy, and the gang that by 1902 was being called the Wild Bunch. Ben was a Texan, born January the 5th, 1874. He rode with a number of gangs, the High Fives, possibly the Black Jack Ketchum gang and others in Texas, before he joined up with Butch Cassidy, Harvey Logan and others around about the turn of the century. They robbed a train in Montana, the Great Northern, in July 1901, and got away with a significant amount of unsigned currency. And it was that currency that led to the downfall of Ben Kilpatrick. Ben was arrested in St. Louis, Missouri on the 5th of November 1901, along with his girlfriend, Laura Bullion. Laura had previously been the girlfriend of Outlaw Will Carver, but he'd ended up dead in a gunfight in Sonora, Texas. Ben received a sentence of 15 years in the penitentiary in Atlanta, Georgia. Laura, who was also convicted of circulating forged currency, received a sentence of 5 years. Ben came out of the prison on the 11th of June, 1911. It's pretty certain he never saw Laura again. She stayed faithful to him for about 5 years, but her letters to him were never reached him via the prison authorities. But 10 years in prison hadn't taught Ben a lesson. On the 12th of March 1912, he and another ex-prisoner called Ol Hobeck held up the Southern Pacific at Dryden, Texas. Ben and his friend boarded the train at Dryden, going west, and as the train slowed down on a curve in the line, approaching a place called Baxter's Curve, Ben and his friend ordered the train crew to stop the train on an iron bridge over a canyon. The train crew had little option but to comply. Ben and his friend then separated the train, leaving the passenger compartment stuck on the bridge, while they ran forward the rest of the train with the baggage car and the mail car to a flat just the other side of the bridge. Then it all went badly wrong. Ben's friend was supposed to keep the train crew under guard, while Ben himself ordered the messenger, David Trousdale, to open up the baggage car. Trousdale did so, and Ben began rifling through the bags of mail and valuables. While Ben was doing this, Trousdale managed to pick up an ice mallet, and when Ben's attention was distracted, Trousdale hit Ben over the head several times, and that was the end of the Long Texan, or the Lone Texan, as Ben had become known. After about an hour, Ol Hobeck began to wonder what had happened to his friend Kilpatrick. After all, it shouldn't have taken him that long to rob the express car. Hobeck called out to Ben but got no reply. So he walked back along the side of the train to the express car and again called out for Ben. No reply. Then he stuck his head inside the express car to see if he could see Ben, and that was his fatal mistake. By this time, Trousdale had picked up Kilpatrick's rifle and was waiting for the second robber to put in an appearance. When Hobeck stuck his head into the car, Trousdale fired a shot, hitting Hobeck over the left eye and killing him instantly. That was the end of Ol Hobeck. The two dead outlaws were taken to Sanderson, where they arrived at about 5 o'clock in the morning on the 13th of March 1912. The dead men were propped up against a wagon, supported by the train crew, including David Trousdale, and were photographed. Later, David Trousdale was given a reward by the Wells Fargo in the form of a gold watch for his bravery in tackling the two train robbers. The train robbers were wrapped in sheets and buried in the graveyard in Sanderson, Texas. Whether they're still there is a moot point. The graveyard itself was washed out several times after 1912, and it's entirely possible that the gravestone that's there now doesn't mark where the two men lie. Back in 2000, I attended the Western Outlaw Lawman History Association conference in El Paso, Texas, and I spent about 10 days after the conference traveling through southwest Texas researching the history of the outlaws. The last thing I wanted to do was to find the actual site of the train robbery. Where was Baxter's Curve? I went to the courthouse, but couldn't track anything down. I went into a bookstore and went through some local books, but still couldn't track anything down. I was having something to eat in a local cafe. There was only me and two other guys in there. One of the other guys turned out to be a pastor from not far away, and we got talking about why I was there, and he said that I could find a map of the location of Baxter's Curve in a local information centre. On the wall of the information centre was an old map of Terrell County, where the train robbery took place, and it showed the exact location of Baxter's Curve. So I was able to transcribe the location of Baxter's Curve from the wall of the information office to my map. I drove out to the site of the train robbery, and there was a guy building a house. He explained that it was his land, but he had no problem if I wanted to hike in from where the dirt road crossed the site of the old railroad bed to the site of the iron bridge, which is what I did. Took about 20 minutes to hike from the dirt road along the old railroad track, but eventually there was the site of the train robbery. You can still walk down into the canyon and look at the bridge pillars where the old iron bridge stood. You can walk up the western side of the canyon to the flat in the lee of a mountain where the train robbery itself took place, and where on that day, back in 1912, Ben Kilpatrick came to the end of his outlaw career. I took some pictures, and I looked again at the photographs of Ben and old Kilpatrick, old Hobeck, I beg your pardon, at the depot in Sanderson. As for Ben's girlfriend, Laura Bullion, well, she lived on long into the 20th century. After spending 5 years hanging around waiting for Ben, she gave up. She moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where she changed her name to Frida Lincoln. Laura Bullion, arguably the last of the outlaw gangs, or the mole of the outlaw gangs, died on the 2nd of December, 1961. The reason why it took me so long to find the site of the 1912 train robbery when I was doing my research back in the year 2000 is that sometime during the Second World War, the old Southern Pacific train line was straightened out. That was done to take out curves in the line which were too tight for more powerful wartime trains, which were hauling steel along the Southern Pacific route. This was also, in the year 2000, in a pre-Google Earth era. These days, you can go onto Google Earth, examine the terrain from satellite imagery, and you can see the line, or the original line of the Southern Pacific route, heading west from Dryden towards the old bridge pillars, and then on further west towards Sanderson. But back in 2000, I didn't have that technology. It was only, fortunately, by meeting the pastor in the cafe in Sanderson, who pointed me towards the old map on the wall of the information office, that I was able to locate the actual site of the Baxter's Curve train robbery.